Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is great. We are snowed in again today. And the kids are still here. As I said last week, they're going to be here for a little while, so that's fine. But, you know, they're here like they've been here the whole day because we're snowed in. And they were here all weekend. And so I got to come down here and spend some time on Saturday making a pile of cherry boards. There's actually probably about 40 linear feet of cherry here that is all rough milled down to length and thickness. They all need to be jointed and cut on the and ripped on the table saw. But the point of this conversation is, I came down here Saturday. I got 6 3-footers and 4 4-footers. These are going to be shelves, like box type shelves. And I got all of this out of, I think, 6 boards. They were 6 foot apiece. I think that math works. But anyway, some of these are like 11 inches wide. And I have a 12-inch planer, just a little lunchbox like Delta planer. And it does great. Somebody asked me how I like that planer. I really enjoy it. It cuts cleanly. It does leave scallops, but I think all bladed planers do. If you hold this to the light, you can see really shallow scalloping. That happens with everything. It happens with carbide planers as well. They're smaller, so they look like little divots. And you have to sand it. Okay, I'm going to sand it anyway. But I ran all of this, and throughout the process, I left these in 6-foot lengths. These pieces are 36 inches. I left them 6 foot because, well, that's not a good example. I knew that there would be snipe. My planer snipes pretty bad. What I try to do to combat this snipe is lift up when I'm feeding it in and lift up when it's coming out, and that keeps the nose of the board engaged with the bed at all times. It's still, there's probably a 32nd of an inch dip here, which is, it just happens. So I left these full length because I knew I'm going to cut this end off. And this was the middle of the board, so I've got 2 ends to cut off, and I'll get my 32-inch pieces, or 30, I think they're actually 31 3/4 inch pieces out of the middle of this, and I won't have to worry about the snipe. So I was running these 6-foot boards, and my planer started just spitting dust or chips out the front. And I was like, what is going on? There was this mess on the floor. If I undid the hose, while the planer was running, if I undid the hose without the board in it, there was chips, just like the chips would stop. If I plugged the hose back in, they would start flying out the front, and I could not figure out what was going on. So I just kept running, and by the end I had this huge pile on the floor. And that's when I looked down and realized that my hose was completely full. And that was because my dust collector, which is really just a blower fan, like a blower motor with a bag on it, was completely full. Somehow the impeller didn't get like bogged down, but the bag was full, the hose got full, there was really little suction. So it was just coming out the front of the planer because it didn't have any place else to go. And the interesting part, the amusing part about that is, just last week, I looked into buying, I think Rockler sells it, or maybe someplace else. There's a trash can lid that you put on a metal trash can that is a cyclone lid to basically turn a trash can into a dust separator. And I was looking at it, they're like $40 or $50 or something. I was looking into that. I was looking into getting a trash can, which are like $20 or something for a metal trash can. I was going to try and find the biggest one I could find that fits the lid, and I didn't order it for some reason. I mean, I technically right now I'm really trying to budget, as we said last week. Like I really need to worry about my budget, so I don't really have the $60-$70 it makes to upgrade. Well, more like 80 because I have to buy another length of hose. I don't have the cash on hand right now I mean, I could, but I don't, and so I just didn't. I was like, I don't need it. I'll just empty the bag. You know, the dust collector that I have, the bag that I have, is not intended to be a collection bag. It's a filter bag. It's supposed to be on the filter side, so you should have the dust going somewhere else before it hits that bag. I don't, so I'm using it incorrectly. It's really hard to empty because it just has a like 5-inch opening. There's no zipper on it or anything like that. So it was a complete mess. I had turned on my dust fan, put on my mask, tried, emptied it, which makes a huge mess in here. Usually when I empty that thing, I go outside and just let the wind carry the fine particles away. But that wasn't an option. So everything is covered in a thin coat of dust right now. Probably, my lungs included, because I did the best I could, wearing a respirator and stuff. But it's just one of those experiences, And so I got done. I finished that. I cut all these down to rough length so that I could start the jointing process. And my jointer's been giving me issues. So I looked at it. In the bed of the jointer was like a nice layer of surface rust. It's cast iron. It looked pretty bad. And so I decided it was time to probably do something about that. I don't know that I ever addressed the bed on that jointer other than to set it up. So I went over and I put my level on it, which is my closest thing I have to a straight edge here. And I realized that the outfeed bed was like microscopically below the drum, not the blades, not the knives, the actual cutter drum. Like somehow that outfeed table sank. And so it's been giving me problems. Like I haven't been getting clean cuts off of it. And that's why, because it was not set up properly. So I tore it apart. I raised the outfeed bed so that, I had to raise all the knives, but I raised the outfeed bed a good 1/8 of an inch or more above the actual cutter wheel, the thing that holds the knives. That's what it was in line with. And then I took some sandpaper, some 220 grit, and some WD-40 and just sanded the cast iron and got it nice and smooth. Took some Scotch-Brite, smoothed all that up, got it nice and clean, coated it in wax, put it all back together. Now it's cutting beautifully. It's got some nicks in the blades, so I did order a set of knives because they're not super expensive. Those knives I've had since I got that jointer, which has probably been like 6 or 8 years now. And I've never changed the knives. I've never even moved them. It's not like I come down here making stuff all the time, but it needed done. So I got that set up, and by the time all that got done, I had to do some stuff with the kids. The youngest stayed out at a scouting retreat this weekend, and the oldest had practice at school, so I needed to pick them up. So I did not actually get down here to finish cutting all these and then sanding and all that sort of stuff. So there's still a bunch of work to do. I have to cut all this down to a particular width, joint cut, and then after that procedure, I will be able to sand, and then these vertical pieces are going to get 1 dado for the middle shelf and 2 rabbets on the ends, and then I'll be able to assemble this thing and put some finish on it. I'm going to try. I bought a jar or a can of tried and true varnish oil. This is supposedly like a pine resin and linseed oil varnish. I've heard really good things about it and really bad things about it. Supposedly this is a kind of finish that has to go on extremely thin. Like you don't even want it to soak into the wood. You want to put a few drops on a rag and rub that in until you're not getting any more wet look, and then just drops. So I'm going to try this. Never used it before, but I'm excited to try it. And I'm going to put it, I've got a hot sauce bottle. I buy Cholula, the big bottle. So I've got one of those drying upstairs. I'm going to put that finish in it and come play with this. So my weekend was busy. I did a lot. I played video games a lot. Hung out with the kids. It was a good time. They're still here. They're going to be here for a while. It's been good. What did you do this weekend? Also, obviously, thank you everybody for the kind messages regarding episode 1500. Got a voicemail from somebody. Thank you. very much for the voicemail. I got some emails from people. Thank you very much for those emails. Twitter responses, Facebook. Thank you everybody wherever you watch this for commenting on 1500. It's a pretty big deal for me. And I really appreciate everybody's sentiment. Thank you so much. So thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is kinesiology. It is a noun meaning the science of muscles and their function, physical movement, and muscular development. As a bodybuilder, he studied both nutrition and kinesiology. Kinesiology, K-I-N-E-S-I-O-L-O-G-Y. That's one of those words that's like, I'm not ever going to use that. Do I need to know that? I don't know. Maybe if I'm writing for Men's Health or something. Where to book? There to book.